The Russo Brothers' brand new movie is out this week on Netflix. I've already seen it twice, in fact, both times in theaters, but a lot of you guys are finally going to be able to see it for the first time this week on Netflix, and that is called The Gray Man, starring Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. So I thought it'd be fun to dive in and rank all the Russo Brothers movies from worst to best. So let's jump right in this, have some fun. The lists are down below, so make sure to leave your guys' ranking down there as well. And of course, without further ado, let's dive into this right now. Just as a heads up, two of their films will not be on this list. I know I said I was ranking all of them, but these two, one I have seen, but it was so long ago that it is not fair for me to even go back and even try to rank this, as well as their very original film, their very first film ever, Pieces. That film, I can't find it to watch anywhere. So Welcome to Collinwood and Pieces will not be included on this ranking, but feel free to include it in yours. Coming down at my number 7 in last place is You, Me, and Dupree. I think this movie is a fun little comedy, but other than that, it is not one that holds any classic merit to comedies of that era. I think it has a great cast, and I think Owen Wilson is a lot of fun. Plus, Matt Dillon, I wish we just had more of him in film because I think he's such an awesome actor. And in this film in particular, he is fun. This movie is fun. But when you look at comedies, this is not a comedy that you go back and rewatch. This is one that you kind of put in the background. And you're like, oh yeah, this was kind of fun back in the day, but nowadays you just don't really care about it. On my number 6, we have Cherry. This is the Russo brothers' approach and attempt to do something different than anything they had ever done before. To this point, they had just done a lot of comedies, and especially sitcoms within Happy Endings and Community, and then went right into the MCU with Winter Soldier and all that stuff. And this was their first big film after Avengers Endgame with Tom Holland, also his first big role after Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home. And Cherry is a film that I appreciate. It is not a film that I love. There are aspects of it that I love, but I think there are elements of the film that absolutely drag it down. But I think what the Russo brothers was going for, within the approach, within the mannerisms, within the story, and all the moral messages that it was trying to say throughout it all, that is some of the stuff I love. And I think Tom Holland is absolutely excellent in this film. I think he makes this movie better than what it is. And the Russo brothers directing is pretty solid again as well. The biggest issue with Cherry is its writing and its runtime. This film could have easily been slashed about 20 to 30 minutes, as well as better script with better dialogue could have been given throughout this entire film. This is mostly a movie that is mainly a mixed bag that I feel like could have been better if executed stronger in the script, and I feel like that's where this film really falls hard on, and truly enough, should have been an Academy level type stuff with everyone on board, but sadly was not. And now at my number 5, this is where we're going to get a little bit controversial, but at my number 5 is Captain America Civil War. I love this movie. I think this movie has a lot of great elements to it, and truly enough, it is the film that truly is kind of the prologue to Avengers Infinity War. Without this film, without the Avengers breaking up, Thanos would have never won. Because if the Avengers were together, they would have been able to team up and actually take the guy down, I feel like, together. And in Infinity War, it's like everyone's just running for the hills and trying their best to stop this madman. Civil War is a great establishment of that. And I think there are a lot of stakes in here, specifically in the last fight scene between Iron Man, Cap, and Winter Soldier. That fight scene is hands down one of the best fight scenes in the entire MCU. The entire airplane fight sequence, while fun and entertaining, is a sequence that kind of takes out a lot of the levity and stakes for me, because there's just a lot of humor knitted throughout there. And while, again, comic book nerds are enjoying it, seeing all these different characters fighting and being like, oh my god, this is Civil War, there wasn't enough stakes for me, because it just felt like they were just guarding and pulling punches in a sense than actually throwing punches. Where in the last very fight scene, that was some of the best aspects. I love a lot of the tones in this. I love how they introduced Black Panther and Spider-Man into the world of the MCU. I think the Russo brothers did a really good job with this one, but when it comes down to rewatchability, I know this is going to be very different for everyone else, but this is one of the films that I don't rewatch too much in the MCU now. Now, at my number 4, we have The Gray Man. Now, maybe this is recency biasy, but I know a lot of people are very split on this one. Some people enjoy this, some people do not enjoy this at all, and overall, some people just think it's fine. For me, this is a movie that's just like right up my alley, and it's one of those thrillers, these spy thrillers that we just don't get enough nowadays. It would have been made back in the early 90s, if not the late 90s, early 2000s, with the stylized action that they have in here. It very much feels like style of, and tone very much of, Winter Soldier, mixed with Fast and Furious and John Wick and elements of all those natures. I find The Gray Man to be a very engaging action thriller that I, at all points in time, are very locked in. While the first 5 minutes are a little bit honky and weird, and I don't really feel like establishes and moves into everything that was kind of going on, I really love the second the first action scene kicks in, the entire journey, this cat and mouse game continues and goes throughout the entire story. This story, while again it has some tropes of other spy thrillers that you've seen, this is a film that very much elevates every single moment of the film due to the acting. Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, all phenomenal in this, and I couldn't get enough of them. And I really do think that the Russo brothers directing in here is some of the best aspects of the entire film, mainly because of the action and the way that they were able to always keep you intrigued and engaged. While, okay, yeah, we've seen this before in the story. Oh, another great action sequence, and always going. My only issue with this film is it feels like it should have been rated R. It feels like it was cut down, and I know someone that did see a test screening of this back in the day, and he let me know that it felt rated R and that they did pull some punches on this one. So I wish Netflix would have let them go rated R, but overall, I did love The Gray Man. And I know I'll be in the minority, but that's just me. At my number 3, we have Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Like I've mentioned, this is one of my favorite MCU films in all of Marvel due to the fact of the way that they were able to intersect such a unique tone and subject styling to it all. Some of the best action scenes in the entire MCU. Captain America this is the film that made me actually love the character of Captain America and know that he wasn't just this typical Boy Scout that we saw in the first movie. This really elevated him. It gave a lot more material to Chris Evans to work. It gave a lot of material for Scarlett Johansson to work, and introduced Anthony Mackie as the fabulous Falcon, but now is Captain America, and I love that. Alongside this, the twists and turns in this political spy thriller that we get in here are hands down some of the best in the MCU, and the way that they were able to mix that genre with the comic book genre is fantastic. Everything with Bucky Barnes and the Winter Soldier was great. There's some weird wonky stuff in the middle of the film, but besides that, I loved The Winter Soldier, and I think this is one of the best MCU films ever. Of course, speaking of best MCU films, my top 2 will be clearly evident. It's either going to go back and forth on which one it would be, but at my number 2, it is Avengers Infinity War. This is blockbusters at its finest. It is a pure thrill ride from the second the credits, like the opening credits start, to the very end. And it never stops. It was a risk to make Thanos the main character of this, but they did it. And they actually made you care about this antagonist to a point where you understand what his purpose is and why he is going forward with this, while also understanding all of our other characters that you're mixing in here and formulating them into which teams would it be best for them to be a part of. Seeing Cap in Wakanda with everyone else in there was fabulous, and then seeing Thor come in, still one of the best moments in cinematic history of when he enters Wakanda and starts taking names and kicking ass. And then you have everything on Titan, the Battle of Titan, Iron Man, Guardians, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. That is still some of my favorite action sequences in the entire MCU, is everything on the Battle of Titan, specifically between Doctor Strange and Thanos and when they're fighting. It is such a thrilling ride and one that absolutely still makes goosebumps go down my spine. I love Avengers Infinity War, and especially in the way that it was such a thrill ride from top to bottom. At my number 1, it is obviously Avengers Endgame. This is the emotional crux, the peak of the MCU at its finest, and this is a movie that I've continually come around to just rewatch. Now, I do have some issues when it comes down to pacing just in the middle of the film with everything, the time travel, but I've kind of come to love it. And while there are some obviously coincidences in here to get our heroes to here and there, that's something that you just have to dismiss and go along for the ride. As something that it comes down to a conclusion of 3 phases of movies and all those hours that are put together, Endgame does that in a very satisfying way that, yes, while can be fanficked and very much people will be like, well, of course this is just appeasing to the fans, it's supposed to be. The first act is absolutely great. The way that it was an epilogue to Avengers Infinity War and everything that had come before that, and showing us how do you go past this? How do you move past this? Then we find out the plan. You get into the plan of the second one, and then it leads into the third act, which is one of the greatest third acts of any comic book film. I love Avengers Endgame for all this. The third act is some of the greatest stuff. And the Russo brothers directing, while a lot can be like, oh, Kevin Feige did this, Kevin Feige did that, the writing could have done this, the actors did that, the Russo brothers did that by giving us a very confident story that was awesome in every manner and still makes my comic book geeky heart beat very fast anytime I think about any of these great moments, and that makes it their best movie. And I don't know if they'll ever top it. I mean, maybe if they come back and do another Marvel movie, but specifically I would not want them to do. I want them to keep trying and doing different things. But other than that, guys, thank you so much again for watching this. This is my Russo Brothers ranking. Can't wait to see your guys' thoughts down below. Look forward to a couple other movie reviews and rankings coming up now. If you're watching this video now, I'm actually at San Diego Comic-Con, so I'm doing my best to do a lot of coverage there. So make sure to follow all my social media links down below if you're interested in seeing all that coverage, because I'm going to be tweeting, TikToking, all sorts of things like that. A lot of fun content. And of course, guys, until next time, stay classy.